Welcome to another episode, Pound for Pound Box Report, episode 325. I'm your host, Michael. Joining me this week, the usual panel, Gail from Falcon Valley Group
Usual.
and Communities Digital News, Daniel from the Inspiring for Boxing News. What's going on, lady and gent?
Yeah. The regulars. The regulars are here, ready to go.
Yep. And because there's not a lot to recap and whatnot, or even preview, this is going to be a short show. Just a forewarning. For those who are new
We hear the applause across the nation as he says
for
that.
those who are new to Pound for Pound Box Report, Pound for Pound Box Report live YouTube show, podcast, and website discussing all things boxing. The motto is when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When it's bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is, if it concerns the sweet science, for the most part, it will get talked about. If you want to find out all information regarding the show, please go to the website, p4pboxingreport.com, and repeat that, p4pboxingreport.com. If you look throughout the page, at the top of the page, you can find us. You can find links to where to follow us all over social media: the Facebook page, the Twitter page, the IG page, the Tumblr page. Um, you can also find links to where to find podcasts all over. We're on all on most, if not all, platforms where podcasts are available: iTunes, Spotify, Anchor, and any and everywhere else in between. If you're checking us out on iTunes, please make sure to follow us there. Please make sure to follow us on Spotify as well as Anchor. And on iTunes, please make sure to leave a review. I would love to hear some words from you. What we're doing good with the show, what we can do to improve the show. 5-star review will get read on a future episode. If you want to email us, the email address is p4pboxingreport at p4pboxing, at p4pboxingreport.com. Let me repeat that: p4pboxing at p4pboxingreport.com. Also on the website, link where you can donate. Got Cash Me and PayPal donation link. Let donation be the best nation and last, but certainly not least. If you're interested in fitness, getting your fitness game up, trying to get into some shape for the summer, or if you're interested in one of my Let's Build Together group fitness challenge, please scroll to the bottom portion of the page. You'll check out my online coaching link. I am an online coach for Beachbody. Please check out Beachbody On Demand. They got programs that will suit and cater to any of your fitness interests and goals. 2-week trial goes throughout the year. That means that for 2 weeks, you get free access to all programs on Beachbody On Demand, whether it's the old classic P90X series, the Insanity Asylum series, the Morning Meltdown for those who like to get their work in the morning, Pio and Bar Blend, which the ladies particularly seems to have a particularly liking to. 6 weeks of the work, which is, in my opinion, the most challenging all of the programs on there. If you really want to test yourself, please check out 60 weeks of the work. Or if you're an boxing enthusiast and looking for a boxing-based programs, may I suggest 10 rounds, a boxing-based program that's devoted to both weightlifting and fitness. With that being said, let's get things going. Folks, recapping some fights. We're only going to recap 2 fights, and or if Gail or Daniel want to also talk about some more fights, I'm going to give them the floor to do so. But let's start with the big fight of the weekend. That is, it took place at AT&T Stadium in Arlington. Canelo Alvarez, Billy Joe Saunders unification at 168. Canelo WBA Super / WBC champ. Billy Joe Saunders WBC champ. Canelo won by technically 9th round KO. Saunders didn't come out for the 9th round, but a lot that went in between that. I'll go to you first, Gail. A lot of people are heaping criticism down on Saunders. Why? Because he or his corner, whoever, decided to say essentially no mas after the end of the 8th round. In that round, Canelo caught Billy Joe with a right hand, kind of an uppercut as Billy Joe was sweeping down, caught him solid in the eye. Billy Joe Saunders' left eye began to right eye. I'm sorry, right eye. I think it was began to show distress, began to swell up significantly. Um, the corner or the fighter or both decide to say no more. comes out now. Billy Joe Saunders released a statement today on social media that he suffered 3 fractures over the orbital bone, fractures on the cheekbone, right? My thing is, a lot of people are saying that Billy Joe quit. Honestly, I will say I think he quit as well. Uh, your assessment of the fight, Gail, itself, because Saunders was doing well despite the scorecards despite the official scorecards at the end of the fight. I thought he was doing well. I thought he should have carried on. He didn't give himself a chance to really assess the injuries. That's not what you do in this kind of sport. That's not protocol. Your reaction to everything that you saw.
First of all, I think while Saunders certainly acquitted himself better than some of Canelo's other recent opponents, we kind of are grading on a curve here. And just because Saunders looked better than Callum Smith or Avni Yildirim didn't mean he was making a lot of headway. He didn't embarrass himself by any means, but it's sort of disingenuous to say, well, he was doing much better than the cards, or he was doing well despite the cards. No, he really wasn't. He really wasn't. He was not winning many rounds. While they weren't blowout rounds, he wasn't winning the rounds. He was clearly less at ease, struggling to figure out how to unlock the key to getting Canelo under control. Meanwhile, Canelo was only getting better and better and better as the fight went along, having less and less fear of what Saunders had to offer in front of him, which is why he started moving in round by round, detonating those body shots round by round. And again, his defense has gotten so much better. If he has improved any measure of his game, which you can really date from the year 2013 when he faced Floyd Mayweather, he has so polished up his defense. Not typical for a Mexican style sort of fighter. But yeah, the crushing blow literally came very much at the end of that 9th round as Canelo dipped backwards, took just that, slight step back out of range as Saunders fired a jab, missing. And then as Saunders moved to his right to get out of the way, he got met in the face by that kind of corkscrew 45-degree hook uppercut that Canelo landed. And it was similar to a lot of counter punches you see from Mexican fighters, the classic of all time being Juan Manuel Marquez dropping Manny Pacquiao. When both a fist and a head come toward each other, the force is exponentially increased. And so Saunders took a massive hit to the head. I'm really surprised he was standing, frankly, after that. And as he took the punch, crouched over quite a bit. As he stood up, it wasn't even seconds after that punch landed, and you could start seeing the swelling and the damage. There was a slight cut, but the swelling, it almost blew up as if you had put a balloon on a CO2 can. Boom, it was there. The round ended very quickly after that. The punch was landed right at the end of the round. His corner took one look at him, and they knew what they saw. And Canelo later said to his trainer in the corner and said later that he knew as the minute he landed the punch and then got a look at Saunders that, in his words, I'd broken his cheek. We broke his orbital bone, and now we know that Saunders has needed surgery. He's been in the hospital. That was one hell of a serious injury. And anyone who thinks that he's a pussy for some reason, not coming out of the corner, I have a really hard time following that. The man's face was broken into pieces. He has every reason, his corner has every reason to preserve his eyesight and his health to live to fight another day. He was losing on the cards. Canelo was doing more and more damage as the rounds went by. On a lot of cards, Saunders had not won another round since the fourth, and we're now in the ninth. I don't see it. I absolutely do not see sending that man out with his face in that condition and being unable to see. You don't go out standing in front of arguably the top 1, 2, or 3, wherever you put him, pound for pound fighters in the universe with that kind of power. I mean, it would be corner malpractice to send him out. And I get it that a lot of people have this dirty lens of Saunders having trash talked other fighters, notably Daniel Dubois, for not coming out after similar injuries. Well, Billy Joe, I guess you were ignorant of how it feels when you're the recipient. Now you know. I'm not a fan of Billy Joe. You all know that. I mean, in general, we don't have the highest opinion of him on this show, I would venture to say. But I'm going to defend him in this one. I don't think he needed to come out. I don't see it as quitting at all. He was seriously injured. The fight was over.
I'll read some comments here. I want to thank Ivan DC and Orly Foods. I think that's how you pronounce his name or her name, from the live YouTube chat. Ivy DC said he did quit, but going in another round would have meant risking his life, and the doctor knew that. I had a 7-1 for Canelo up to that point. I just say fools. Just for short, says I really hate fight fans these days. Like the guy took the hugest punch of the year, and did not get knocked out, and they still talk shit about him. That's like that's so effed up. One, is not the hugest punch of the year. I disagree on that, but I see your point. I even went on to also say here that this fight was similar in circumstances to Chavez versus Greg Haugen fight. Haugen and Saunders talking trash a lot. Chavez and Canelo ending the fights early because of all the talking. I go to you, Daniel. I hear Gail's point, right? And I understand it. Here's my issue here. There's precedent. Yes, this injury on Saunders was significant, but we've also had other fighters with similar significant kinds of injuries, and they carried on. And they carried on and won. I'm not saying that Saunders was going to win this fight. But again, you never know, given the backdrop of how he's run his mouth, right? Given the fact that he got hit and the cornerman talked to him in his ear, there was no response. I don't like that. Need I remind folks that Tanaka, he had not just one fractured bone over the bone, 2 in the same fight, and continued to carry on. There's been other fighters in other situations have had similar injuries, and they carried on. To me, I don't want to come off as callous or sadistic. I thought he could have carried on, at least give it another round to see how things would go, and just that instead of basically kind of panicking, the corner, the fighter, everything all around, it was just done like that.
Okay, well, now that I've sat a day to think about it, I have 2 halves to deal with. The first half is the compassionate human approach, which is, yes, technically he did quit, but at the same time, do you as a person want him to go through the same thing that somebody like Israel Vasquez ultimately wound up doing, I think, which is losing an eye, or with Margarito being blind in one eye, and just dealing with something that's really permanent in this stage of your life? Because at a certain point, you have to value your health. You have to value how you're going to react, how you're going to come back home to your family. That part I get. The other part of me is laughing, relishing. Say I love it. I love the fact that Billy Ho quit for all the bullshit he talked about, especially when it came to the Dubois situation. There's a part of me that relished the fact that he fucking quit. But at the end of the day, he was quitting in a fight that he was not going to win. I don't want to hear this talk like, oh, it's because in Texas he wasn't going to win. I don't know what the hell Chris Manus was smoking with the scorecards that he was having. You could give Saunders 2 rounds, maybe 3 at most, if you're being generous. Into that
I
point.
gave him 3.
Yeah, you can be generous and give him 3 rounds up to that point. And granted, yeah, in the 8th round, the first half, until Canelo landed that punch, he was actually doing fairly well. But the problem was that Saunders tried his usual tricks, tried the histrionics, tried his mannerisms to try to see if he could unnerve Canelo, and Canelo just kept punching him. Just kept landing body shots. Kept landing the scoring blows. And in the times he did miss, yeah, Billy Joe made him miss, but more often than not, Canelo was being more accurate, particularly with the body shots. And so all the crying that he did about the 22-foot ring was all for naught. Now, we understand, yeah, that he did get pretty significant damage. And like I said, there's a human part of me that understands it. That I get it. Like, yeah, you have to do what you have to do for your health, but at the same time, don't talk shit, because you're gonna have other people going after you. Gabe Rosado came after him.
Right.
After him, because he said, I broke my bone. I fight against Jacobs. And Gabe Rosado is a fighter that gets cut up almost in every fight that you can think of. Like, and even when fights that he thought he was winning, like in the fight against Quillen, Rosado, if the doctor didn't stop the fight, there was a good chance Rosado would have won that fight.
Of course, that's a very different circumstance, because Billy Joe was not winning this fight.
Yes, and that's what I mean. That's the circumstance. This people cut it on a different cloth in many ways, but don't talk smack if you're not willing to back it up. Even if you understand it now, like, yeah, okay, the pain is very severe. You made your bed, you have to lie in it.
He said if he was in a similar circumstances, he will, quote, never quit. He the one who puts this narrative of warrior code after other fighters have suffered similar injuries. You can't do that.
Oh, he learned his lesson, no doubt about it. And I don't think agreeing it was the right thing to do, but then turning around and enjoying the hell out of him eating his words are mutually exclusive. Because I agree with you, Daniel. It did my heart good to see him suddenly realize what it's like to be on the receiving end, right?
You can't do that. You can't do that and talk all that and stuff, and then have folks and then expect sympathy afterwards. That's not how it works, sir.
Well, I'm not sympathetic to him taking heat over his comments. I differentiate the smack talk comments from the injury. I don't think he should have been expected to fight on with that kind of injury. I do think he needs to apologize for all the crap he talked about guys like Daniel Dubois, for example. And it just shows you the difference between a guy like Saunders and a guy like Dubois, who took so much heat from Saunders, the latest, right? And Dubois also did have a broken orbital bone. Dubois' reaction when he saw what happened to Saunders was, I hope he's okay. I wish him well. Good for him. He didn't dance on his grave. He didn't say, yeah, see how you like it. And you know why? He didn't have to. He didn't have to. Saunders has already suffered the ultimate humiliation. He lost his title. He lost his undefeated record. He went down in flames. You know, he got punished plenty. I don't really need to talk shit about him, for not carrying on in the fight from a health and a physical standard. I think that's unrealistic to expect. We ask a lot of these guys, they risk their health for our entertainment, and when they are done with their careers, everybody forgets about them and they've got to live with whatever damage they took. I think we need to grant a little more grace where that's concerned. And just because other guys chose to do it doesn't mean that we should necessarily expect it from all of them, especially when they're injured, as it turned out, quite severely. And obviously the corner recognized it. They're right up on top of him looking at it. I mean, it didn't look bad from our vantage point. I can only imagine what it looked like a few feet away. And who knows what else they were able to tell or see or determine the breaks. You don't send a guy out like that. You just don't.
Same energy. That's my final comment about the same energy. You talk that way, and I think there is some you said this, you don't think it's mutually exclusive. I think it is to a certain point. When you talk that way, when you respond to other fighters that way, and then when there's a precedent of fighters fighting on, because keep in mind, it wasn't like Dubois just quit once he got hit and hurt in the eye. He carried on. It wasn't like Kell Brook, who Billy Joe Saunders also chastised, just up and quit. He carried on twice.
Yeah,
First sign of distress, and you drop out.
Ruined his
Same
career.
energy.
Absolutely
Same energy.
ruined his career. Absolutely ruined his career. I'm convinced he broke the other side of his face because he didn't get out of the ring the first time. He broke the opposite side of his face. He said, who knows what his health's going to be like down the road.
Read some comments here from the chat. I think Ivan DC says a couple of comments here. I think it was mainly because Billy Joe had never been severely injured. Neither the corner or Billy Joe himself were used to seeing him injured. And like you guys say, they freaked out. He also says that people were laughing about how Billy Joe told a reporter his breath smelled like shit. In my opinion, that's disrespectful towards someone who was just doing their job. He has to apologize to everyone. Everyone. I couldn't agree with you more, Ivan. So this has come up. It's on his part. I understand the sympathy part. I understand the preservation of his health. But again, this is boxing. I would have liked to have seen him. I didn't like the way everybody in his corner, the fighter, and everybody panicked. I just didn't like it. That's just my opinion.
Let's move on. I just don't see the word panic. I don't see the word panic
they did.
whatsoever. How do you say that?
They did.
Why they did. What's panic? Describe what panic means to you.
Panic is they saw him hurt for the first time in that fight. They talked to him, and instead of saying, okay, let's weigh this. Let's see if he can go. I would have been happy if Billy Joe Saunders went out there for that 9th round. He would have got hit, and then he would just basically turn his head and say no more. I'd have had more respect for him than this.
Richard Colon, do you really want that in your conscience? Do you really want
similar? Not the same context, not the same injury, not the same injury.
All he needs is one more shot to the head on an already broken face. No, absolutely, completely irresponsible. Part of the difference, I think, is that the injury occurred at the end of a round. There was one more minute for that injury to swell, for the bleeding to occur under the skull pieces and the skin. No. Different when it happens in the middle of a round and the seconds are ticking by as the injury unfolds. So you have a little more time for judgment. He didn't get that here. It happened right at the end of the round. So there was a minute for that face to swell, him not to be able to see. Yeah, I have to take that into account too. I just don't see a responsible decision being criticized. I absolutely think he deserves all the crap in the world for the shit talk. But I'm separating the two. I think the problem is everyone is seeing it as one and the same, and I don't. I absolutely differentiate between the decision for his health, but does he need to eat shit over his previous comments, and does he need to apologize? Oh yeah, he absolutely does. And it'll be very interesting to see when he emerges from his hospital stay what he's got to say.
Oh, and let's add before we I know we talk about the other fight. Probably the person that got the last laugh was Chris Eubanks, because Canelo made him some money in the betting slips in the UK. Because Eubanks bet for a Canelo KO. He got it.
Yeah, and I think on this one, this is going to be a topic that we will respectfully agree to disagree on. Let's move on to some stuff that happened following the fight. Post-fight press conference, Demetrius Andrade, who has a belt at 160 pounds, him and Canelo got a bit into it. I'll go to you, Daniel. I hear what I'm not liking in the aftermath of that is how people are just either completely blaming Andrade or completely blaming Canelo. They got into it. Canelo, his English got really good awful quick, right? Called him a horrible fighter. Said he would never get the fight with Andrade would never fight him. I don't like that. Has Andrade kind of effed up his career in large chunks? Yeah, but this dude has been calling out Canelo since their days at 154, and Canelo has largely dismissed him and ignored him and act like he doesn't exist. Now they get face to face and Canelo responds in that way, saying he's trash and that he will never fight him. No, I'm not a fan of that. Even as Andrade, he himself had maybe turned out a fight or two, but we're talking about Canelo and Andrade specifically. I didn't like how the exchange went on.
Well, when you look at it, the exchange, I had to give Andrade props for doing it. Like it's a great tradition.
He did what a fighter was supposed. He did what a fighter's supposed to do. Who's trying to seek a fight. That's what you do.
He did the great tradition of it, and we have to remember this is not the first time Canelo had this happen to him. Erislandy Lara did it to him, but he did it in a much calmer way. But he still did it to him, and he still irked him enough to do it, and that's how they wound up with Canelo Lara. What this situation makes it a little bit different, one probably makes it more distasteful, and like I said, on both parts, is probably the fact that, of Canelo's dismissiveness towards Andrade. Because there is a school of thought in some boxing circles, we have to be blunt, that believes Canelo ducks certain fighters who can present him with a different style. Like Andrade's included in that circle. Both Charlos are considered in that circle. There's other components to it, but I'm going to leave just the skill set alone. And there's this mindset that Canelo is not going to risk it because he's now playing off the Oscar/Floyd playbook. Make the big fights, make as much money as you can. Don't make a risky fight against somebody that might derail your cash cow status a little bit. But the problem here with Canelo is, and this is where Canelo to me was in the wrong, was the fact that you're not protecting an O like Floyd is. You already lost once. You're not protecting an O in that aspect. And for all the talk you want to talk about when he said, like, Canelo, like, you're trash, like, you're a horrible fighter, you haven't fought nobody, we have to bring up Yildirim. We have to bring up Rocky Fielding.
Hell, Saunders didn't fight anybody either, and he got the fight.
Yeah. And then that way, you have to look at it. You really haven't fought a lot of the best right now in your division. Like right now, at super middleweight, the only person that has a belt right now is Caleb Plant. That's the only person, but probably the most dangerous fighter that you can take in that division right now is David Benavidez. Because when it comes to Canelo, he's bigger than Canelo. He's likely stronger than Canelo. And he has pretty good hand speed, which makes him a very, very dangerous fighter.
If Benavidez wouldn't stop shooting himself in the foot, but he's the one fighter at 168 no one really wants.
Yeah. So that's the main point. And then if you try to go up and try to do anything, or Dimitri Bivol, if the Bivol decides to go down to 168, which he said he is willing to do if the fight is Canelo. Those are the fights that you provide in that area. Those are the fights that people want to see. And yeah, Saunders had a belt. And yes, it did answer a certain question because there were some people that said that he was ducking Saunders too. But now that question's been answered. This question is going to continue happening because, like it or not, unless you leave the zone, Andre's going to hang around. He knows he's poking the bear. Like he's been poking the bear for the past few years now, particularly late in comparison to fights. And we all know he probably had that shirt that he was wearing made that day.
Yeah.
So he's Andrade right now, he's paying for a lot of this of the way he, for lack of a better word, fucked up his career. Starting with listening to Jay-Z and not taking the Charlo fight, when he probably would have made himself a pretty good fan base outside of the Rhode Island, Eastern Connecticut, Lower Massachusetts area, that's where his fan base is, because that's where he's from, Rhode Island. Outside of that part, Canelo dominates. So you shot yourself in the foot. You're trying to rebuild from it. I understand getting mad because Canelo kind of went after his dad too. But at the end of the day, like, this is boxing. This is the way challengers challenge champions. I mentioned Lara. We have to remember when Paulie Malignaggi was the WBA champion at welterweight. Who's the one that came to his press conference yelling, "You better not duck me"? Keith Thurman. And what started happening when Keith Thurman started winning championships, Errol Spence did that to him. So this is a good tradition. I don't know, unfortunately, in this case is going to bear any fruit.
I don't either. I'll go into the chat once again. Olaf says in the chat, says, first of all, he says, "What's up, everybody?" He says, "Canelo overrated." I don't think he's overrated, and I don't think Canelo is scared either, because he fought Lara when Oscar and everyone at Golden Boy didn't want him to fight Lara, but he took the fight anyway. I thought he lost it. I thought Lara beat him that night, but he got in the ring with him. I'll give him credit to that. And I know, Gail, that as I said before, Andrade is an F up, right? It points throughout his career, and he can be annoying. He can be a bit of a weirdo, right? But when it comes to the context of him and Canelo, I will not be the one to dismiss what he's doing here, because there's some legitimacy. I guess all I'm saying is that there's culpability on both sides. I hate using that word given our current political context today, but there's equal responsibility in terms of this fight not happening. Canelo deserves some criticism too. That's all I'm saying.
I don't see it. Canelo is in a different weight division, y'all, and he's not going back to 160. Get a look at him. It's not happening.
Yeah, but Andrade has said he's willing to move to 168 to make the fight happen.
That'd be wonderful. He doesn't have a belt. He's of no interest to Canelo. Canelo's made his intentions very clear. He wants to be the first to unify the super middleweight division and the first Mexican to do it. That's the goal. Now, we do need to keep our powder dry and find out if he can make this fight with Caleb Plant. This is a fight we all want to see on Mexican Independence Day in September. That's the fight to make. And if you aren't looking beyond that, this discussion needs to be tabled, because that's the guy that gets Canelo the goal he wants. Now, if he can't get the Plant fight because there's some PBC, matchroom nonsense, DAZN versus Showtime stuff going on, I mean, that's possible. We've all seen, how those business arrangements can derail these to be obvious matchups. The fighters need to push their teams to get it done. So let's say that doesn't happen. So if it doesn't happen, to me, the next fight that'll shut everybody the hell up is if Canelo takes on David Benavidez in an all-Mexican showdown on that day. But again, Benavidez, let me repeat myself, and I'm sorry if I'm boring everybody, does not have a title. So he's not advancing Canelo's goals at all. No interest. So, until and unless Plant's off the table, and then, if he risks it, I hope everyone will remember all the crap they were talking today about him. We'll see what happens. But Andrade screwed the pooch a long time ago where this is concerned. I don't blame him for crashing the party. But when you're a party crasher like that, and you're going to interrupt what's going on and yell and scream to divert the attention off to you, you have to expect that you're going to get it back. You're going to get some blowback. And I, for one, I find it thoroughly refreshing that we're finally starting to see Canelo's personality come out. It's sort of like the golden handcuffs are off him and he can say what he wants. I'm enjoying it. I think he is too. The most interesting thing he said in that showdown there with Andrade, if y'all noticed it, everybody just paid attention to him saying, "Get the F out of here." But what he also said was, "Payday, payday, payday." And he is not wrong. They all want the Canelo payday. They all want it. He should have been honest about that. I would have respected Andrade if he'd said, "Hell yeah, I want that payday. I think I deserve it." Great. I would beg to differ, but we'll see what happens.
You can admit that, but he's also said he's been wanting him since he's been calling him out for 154. So even before Canelo has been the super megastar he is now, Andrade has wanted the fight.
Right. Well, okay, so that's a different story. Back then, when Canelo wasn't the draw he is now, he also needed to rely on a strong opponent to draw fans and make money. And Andrade, let's all be honest. He is not interesting to watch. He is not well known to the, we all know and admire his skills because we're all hardcore fight freaks. The general fan does not care about him. He has not performed well in his last few fights. He just can't close the show. He knew in his last fight he needed to look impressive, and he couldn't do it. So he's just not making a good case for himself. And it's a shame. There's a lot of what could have been with Andrade. But, at this point, Canelo doesn't, before he was an anchor around, he was like a ball and chain. He just didn't bring a whole lot to the table. But now, he's not, now he's of less use to Canelo, but for different reasons. He's not in the division. He doesn't have the belt he needs to unify. He doesn't advance him audience-wise. That's, the only plus is they fight for the same platform, assuming Canelo stays with DAZN, and I'm sure he absolutely will through Matchroom. That's the only plus, is that it's very makeable from a promoter standpoint. I'm going to say a business standpoint, but it's not a big draw.
Well,
you will never get the fight. You will never get the fight. I'm not letting that go. I'm not letting it go.
Here's the thing, though, Gail, and I put it in the chat. Here's the thing that Andrade can do. The WBO has similar rules to the WBC when it comes to If a champion of one division goes up to another weight division, they have the right to immediately challenge the champion in that division. So Andrade, if he's really serious, he can pull that move. He can say, I'll go up to 168 and I'll go through the WBO, challenge Canelo. And if he's really serious about unifying the belts, he has to fight me. Otherwise, he might get stripped and then not fight for a vacant title. And then he still has to then come see me anyway.
But if Canelo fights Plants and unifies, it's not going to matter. His goal is to unify. Once he does that, it doesn't matter. He don't have to defend it. Andrade can move up. Canelo could move up. Andrade says, okay, I'm officially moving up to 168 afterwards. Once he unified, he still wouldn't fight him. He still doesn't have to fight him. He can say, WBO, you want to strip me? Okay, I've accomplished my goal. I'll just let go of the WBO belt.
Well, why? Okay, yeah, you can do the same route that like Usyk and Terrence Crawford did, but at the same time, it just feeds into the whole thing. Like, oh, you're avoiding him. Like, no, like business wise, yeah, Andrade does not make him money, but that's Andrade's own fault, though.
I can see again, never fighting him. No. We criticize Crawford for saying that about Spence, but then we don't push back against him for doing it. I don't care if Andrade is not a quote unquote money maker. Rules be the same. Again, same energy. Same energy. Let's move on to some another fight on this card. Now I think this will be a fight where we'll be more in agreement of, and that is Elwin Soto versus Takayama. Takayama, former champion at 105. Soto defending the belt at 108 pounds. And Gail Lawrence Cole, he strikes again. Good fight. It was the activity of Takayama, right? And the speed of Takayama versus the power of Soto. Takayama got off to a little bit of a shaky start early on, right? But middle rounds, he started to come on. Round 9, Soto got to Takayama with some shots, but in my opinion, Takayama was still there. He really wasn't that hurt. He was fighting back, and then just suddenly Lawrence Cole stepped in there and waved it off. What can we do to get this dude banned? Because I'm sick and tired of him.
The only plus, I said this at the time, as you know, Michael, on Twitter, the only plus of having Lawrence Cole referee that fight is it meant he wasn't available for the main event. Thank God. It kept him away from that one at least. You know, Lawrence Cole is just a head scratcher. He stepped in and he stepped in it.
He's a troll. He's a damn troll or referee. I can't stand him.
He is a daddy's boy legacy. That's the only reason he's got the job. That's it. You know, it's the family favors in Texas because his dad was so well respected. Yeah, and he just got a very twisted way of administering the rules for the fight. I would imagine if you cornered him and asked him, he'd say, listen, he's 37 years old. He'd only fought 4 rounds in 19 months or longer than that. And he was protecting him. Well, Takayama was not injured. He was not down. He was outraged at the end of the fight. Yeah, he was absolutely defending himself. Was he winning? No, he wasn't winning, but he was putting on a great effort. I think he won himself a lot of fans after that fight. You know, for a veteran fighter at his age, given his recent inactivity, to perform as well as he did, I hope he decides to carry on and not retire. He should. He's still got a lot to offer. He made for a damn entertaining fight. He gave Soto good work, good challenge, and yeah, it just one of these head scratchers. What a shame to not let Takayama end on his feet, which he should have.
Olaf in the chat says Cole cost me money. My bet was on Soto KO in 10-12. I'll go to you on this one, Daniel. Excuse me for saying this, but if there's an example of boxing privilege, Daniel, the boxing equivalent of white male privilege, that is Lawrence Cole. I don't understand. You're right. Gail's right. He's getting these opportunities because he's his daddy's son and because he's in Texas. I can't get over, just like I can't get over Canelo's comments about Andrade. I can't get over the fact that this dude keeps getting opportunity and opportunities, and it's not just that he gets the judge to referee these fights. Why did it always have to be world title fights? Where he gets to be a direct impact, in which and usually he finds some way to mess up, either stopping the fight early or docking a point away from a fighter that deserves a point taken away from him. Why, Daniel? Why? I don't like it. He took away an opportunity for a really good fight that was developing.
Oh, there's so many things wrong with Lawrence Cole. Okay, first off, it's not even like doing favors for a man who's alive. Because as I understand it, Lawrence Cole's daddy is dead. But
he must be paying the Texas State Athletic Commission off to keep getting these fights.
There's that. There's like some, we'll say, I'll use the Navy term, some scuttlebutt about maybe some conflict of interest. Like we don't know, already mentioned the conflict of interest that were involved here. But
skullduggery, as Chris Eubank used to say.
Yeah, but at the same time, this is a situation where, okay, you're dealing, it's like a college dealing with a professor that they gave tenure to, and you can't really take it away from them without causing some type of ruckus. So you just deal with this mess. That's pretty much what this is. And when it comes to this fight, okay, when you look at the moment, part of me can somehow justify because Soto was landing punches. Takayama's legs were starting a little bit shaky, and he was trying to hold to stop Soto from punching. But all that would have been is okay, he probably would have just taken a knee, recovered, and continued the fight.
Yeah.
And that's the point. That's what Takayama did after the fight when he pretty much tried to go through like a shadow boxing routine.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
But it's true. It wasn't going to change the fight because it was a similar situation to the main event where, yeah, the slicker puncher was doing a lot of theatrics when it comes to Takayama, doing a lot of theatrics that were fun. But let's not forget that Soto hurt him pretty badly in the first round and in the second. And he kept landing more punches, and you can tell Soto was getting angrier as the fight was getting along. So it was gonna.
He was like a little bug. He was like a little gnat, just kept annoying Soto the whole fight.
Yeah, but Takayama knew what he was doing, in that sense of the fact that okay, I finally have a big American audience that I can show my skills to, because this could possibly be the last time that I get to show my skills to. And I agree with Gail. This fight makes me to beg him not to retire. But then at least probably just for the last maybe year or two, just make fights in the US. Because you'll be entertaining. You can bring in some other fighters in the division that are pretty fun. Like people know one of my favorites, Hickey Butler. I wouldn't mind that. Takayama versus Butler. I would love that. Or again, Takayama versus CP Freshmart. If CP decides to come up from 105. So there's a lot of things that gain from it, in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't going to matter anyway because Soto was going to win. But it ruins the moment. It does ruin the moment. But Takayama does continue. and Lomachenko. Oh, dude, do not remind me of that shit. Do not remind me of that shit.
Now, for
Granted,
those who don't know what I'm talking about, Olaf in the YouTube chat said, "Let's not forget the peach of a rev job Cole did on that Lomachenko versus Salido fight, where he allowed Salido to tee off on Loma's nutsack about 20 times without a warning."
yeah,
Proceed,
but
Daniel.
yeah, even though we'll admit that was Lomachenko's like welcome to the pros moment. He kind of needed that, but he didn't. But Sarah didn't have to do him like that. Come on, but the but there's like I said, Takayama continues now in the great tradition. It looks to be in Texas of Japanese fighters who present themselves and actually show what they're made of, show the Bushido in front of a mostly Latino crowd, and they get a lot of respect for it. Sure, like the last one that I can think of right off the top of my head is Arakawa when he fought Figuroa. That fight, that Arakawa had no way of winning, but he still kept coming. That's what Takayama was doing. Like he knew he wasn't going to win, but he still kept coming. So I love it. I hope he doesn't retire, but I don't know. Can Lawrence Cole like run for Congress or something? Like do something that gets him away from the state of Texas and puts him somewhere else where he doesn't have to have to fight? Like something.
Due to the Ted Cruz of boxing referees, I can't stand them.
Well, no. Well, let's be fair. Let's be fair. Cole is at least an actual Texan, not a Rafael.
To your questions about both Daniel and Gail about Takayama and whether he will continue on, he was asked about this by the Japanese press afterwards, and he did say that indeed he will continue on. He will fight again. He's 37 years old. This is his first fight at 108 pounds. I would suspect that he may move back down to 105 pounds. He only had a backdrop here to provide context. He only had a month to prepare for this. No, not a month, 3 weeks to prepare for this fight. And yet he made 108. Yet, the weight was with ease. Didn't have any work, didn't have to work at all to make the weight. He could stay at 108. Yeah, but I would suspect he would move back down to 105. If all things were fair, he would get a rematch, but that's not going to happen because there's leading up to this fight, there's been talk of a unification bout between Soto and Koiguchi, who has the WBA/Ring Magazine belt. At the end of the day, this sucks for Takayama. You would have liked to have seen a more definitive finish. If Soto was on the way to taking him out, let him do that, right? Takayama deserved to carry on, and Soto deserved the right to finish this fight off, right? If he really, really had him that hurt. So Cole didn't just take away from Takayama. In a sense, he took away from Soto as well to give him Soto to give him a more definitive conclusion to truly end in the fight. And again, I just can't say this enough. I can't emphasize this enough. He got to go. Someone in the state of Texas, whoever, they got to find a way to get this dude out of here. He's a piss poor referee. He's the sorriest referee in the sport. And the fact that he keeps benefiting from this again form of boxing privilege, it ain't right. It ain't right. Move on to some news here. I think one bit of news that I think it was you, Daniel, who was wanting to tell me, was mentioning in the pre-show talk. Speak on it now, please.
Oh, yeah. So there was a pursuit apparently today for an IBF eliminator. Gail might know the name of the Croatian fighter. I can't pronounce his name. I don't want to butcher it, but it's a heavyweight bout. He's a matchroom guy. And this was supposed to be a purse bid for IBF eliminator, obviously, to become, in this case, right now, Joshua's new IBF mandatory. It was between Croatian guy from Matchroom and Michael Hunter, who I think, like I said, as far as I remember, now still with Top Rank. Well, Matchroom won the purse bid, and interestingly enough, then Michael Hunter backed out of the fight. Now, Bob has said he really wants to get back at Eddie for technically putting his nose in his business when it came to the Teofimo fight. Well, now you have a situation now with the IBF where 3 of the 5 next level contenders are with Top Rank. So you could pretty much take those 3 out, including the guy who previously challenged, Kuda Pulev, which only leaves 2 people. That puts Eddie in interesting conundrums. Joseph Parker, who we all know didn't exactly look exemplary in that win against Chisora.
You're being nice, Daniel.
Yes, I know. I'm being nice. I know. I know. I'm trying to be nice. I'm not trying to say he looked like dog shit because he didn't look like dog shit.
But you just used the word dog shit. Okay.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, there you go. There you go.
We're talking about Philip Hrgovic, by the way. Philip Hrgovic.
Yes, Philip Hrgovic. Okay, because
he's a very, very promising, heavyweight prospect. I would still call him a prospect at this point.
Yeah. Yes, but it's an IBF eliminator. And guess what? Who's the next level up against that? Luis Ortiz. So it's once again, Eddie, you either have to deal with Joseph Parker or you're going to have to deal with Al. And Al's only going to want to talk to you about putting Wilder in that fight. So, yeah, those are fun times now for Eddie Hearn in the heavyweight division because if it's not the WBO wanted to strip him, now it could be the sanctioning body that actually enforces the rules that strips Joshua.
Quick word on this, Gail, or would you like to move on to start previewing some fights?
Yeah, I'll just say this is, after all these negotiations for Hunter to turn this down, this is a big mistake. I think he's going to look back at this and regret it. I don't know what his real reasons are now, but, Dillian White did much the same thing, and he's still not gotten a title shot. Whatever it was, he didn't like something he saw in Hrgovic as an opponent. That I can at least understand. I think that Philip Hrgovic is a very formidable opponent for somebody at Hunter's level. But Dare to Be Great, man. I'm kind of scratching my head. He hasn't really been tarred with the ducking description before. So I'm not sure what this is all about. Of course, now Alan Babic, Babic the Savage, Hrgovic's countryman from Croatia, the big talking heavyweight prospect as well. He wants to step in. Well, we'll see. I don't know if we want that all Croatian war. I will say that'd be a lot of fun to watch.
I'll just say simply that I don't understand the move either. If Hunter wants the ultimate goal of fighting for a heavyweight title, I don't care if Hrgovic is a prospect and a very talented prospect. Sometimes you just have to go for it and get whoever you can get in order to attain that goal. And I think Eddie Hearn has some very choice words for Hunter, not because he's simply how he said he doesn't understand why Hunter would turn down this opportunity. I agree with him on that. I don't know what the motive operandi here on his part. Why would he say no? He should have accepted this. He should have accepted this because gets to fights the eliminator, win. He's basically guaranteed a title shot down the road. So yeah, this is perplexing to say the least. Let's move on to preview some fights here that's happening on the weekend of the 15th. Anyone want to mention before that whoever wants to, if you want to talk about it, Heather Hardy fighting in Tennessee. Anyone want to talk about do you want to go to the bigger fights, more significant fights?
I'm glad to see Hardy back. Let's see what she does. I think that her performance will determine, what direction she goes. Is she going to come back to boxing in a serious way? Is she giving up the martial arts avenue for now? She's very popular. She will draw an audience no matter what she does. But she's a veteran at this point. So let's see what she's got to offer. I'm interested.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And this could be like a good start because it's looking like July, New York City is on the Mayor de Blasio is set on opening up 100% of New York City by July. And by extension, more than likely, Long Island's going to open as well, which opens the Paramount Theater here in Huntington. So you might start seeing more Heather Hardy locally again in the future to get things back up. So the more the merrier, obviously.
Okay, cool. Let's move on to the main card on the 15th that's taking place. I want to, in Carson on Showtime. I'm going back to you, Gail, to talk about the headliner is of Luis Nery defending his WBC belt at 122 pounds, but on the undercard, Roman, excuse me, unified champion, former unified champion at 122 pounds, lost the belt to Akhmadaliev, who was looking very, very good. I was very, very, even though his first title defense against Awasa was a quick stoppage, he looked damn good in that fight. He may be the best at 122 pounds right now. Well, Roman is making his comeback, fighting a guy by the name of Franco, 10-round junior featherweight title on the undercard. Your anticipation here in terms of Roman, how do you think he would do? How do you think he will look, I should say, coming off of over a year layoff, I believe now?
He is coming off a layoff. Roman stays active, stays in shape. He's not sitting on the couch eating Twinkies. We know that. And his record is very deceiving. I think he shows 3 or 4 losses on his record. The majority of those losses came very early in his career when he was grinding it out here in Southern California for Thompson Boxing. And you can argue that when a fighter loses those kind of fights early in their career, when they're very young, they learn a lot. It can really accelerate their growth as a fighter and their skills. Nothing teaches you like, taking the loss from an opponent who, teaches you something in a very memorable way. The fight with Akhmadaliev was razor close. And now that we've seen Akhmadaliev moving forward from there, I think we can all appreciate just how close Danny was and just how good he was. I hope down the road there's a rematch somewhere. So this is him sharpening the saw, getting back in the ring. I think he'll perform very well, but he's going to have to, we can think he's going to do it. We need to see it. But he's a fierce guy. He's an all offensive fighter. Might steal the show depending on what happens in the main event. Should be a lot of fun to watch.
Let's go to that main event. I'll go to you, Daniel. Luis Nery, one of the sports lightning rods. You don't know whether he will make weight for about who was the camp that he was part of, but decided to opt out, decided to dip or get fired or get the boot from the trainer.
The Reynoso.
Eddie Reynoso. Yeah, Eddie Reynoso. He was part of that camp. I don't understand why the two fell out. Anyway, he's fighting Brandon Figuroa, defending the title in the main event of that card on Showtime. At his best, Nery is one of the best fighters at 118 to 122 pounds. The problem is, as I said, his discipline. As I said, he's had numerous occasions where he could not make weight. at 118 pounds. He moves up to 122. He has a belt, but in his title win, he didn't look that great. Is this not just a case of him not it's not how can I put this? It's not a case of him just wanting to win, but is this a case where he has to win and look well doing so?
Yeah, he has to because of the things that you mentioned about. There is a reputation with him when it comes to Nery is that he could be the best band. He could arguably be the best bantamweight or junior featherweight in the world right now if he had the discipline. And you don't get kicked out of the Reynoso camp for being exactly the best disciplinary fighter in the world. Like you had to screw it up in some way or another when it came to it to fight. And now this is going to be an interesting opponent for him because
Lost your vocals, lost your sound, lost your sound,
sorry, I
Daniel.
was closing the door. I'm sorry. No, but this is going to be an interesting fight because with Brandon Figueroa, he fights a similar style to his brother, but he is a little bit more slick and he does take defense a little bit more seriously than Omar does. But this has to be a showing when it comes to Nery because obviously we know at bantamweight, if he chooses to go down to bantamweight again, who he can actually fight. Granted, it will not be in Japan for um, reasons, Yamanaka. But at the end, he has to show up. He does really, really need to show up because otherwise, he's going to be looked at as another person that could have been, that was good, could have been great, but he just lacked the will to do it.
Yeah, and I agree completely. This is step up moment for him. This is show improve in a sense against a Figueroa, who I think is no slouch, who I think will give him a pretty tough go at it. Shout out to by the way, shout out to the homie Ama, who I know the homie of mine who I know personally. Haven't caught y'all in a minute. Salute. Back at you, bruh. Um, Show improved fight as far as I'm concerned from Nery. Um, if he is the goods, if he is motivated, if he really shows up to bring his A game, I hope to see it here in this fight. We should see it in this fight. And Gail, a quick word from you. I think he has to have it in this fight in order to win.
You know, this fight is such a, this is such a hard one to pin down because we do not know what version of these guys is going to show up, especially Nery. We have all been high on him at different times in this, in this show among the panel. He's got obvious skill. When he sort of first burst on the scene, it was so impressive. And he has just shot himself in the foot with weight issues and questionable work ethic more than once. It just kills me to see someone who's truly talented, squander what they've got for whatever reason. And it is really troublesome to me that when Nery got accepted into the Reynoso camp, which is not easy to do, they're very, very picky about who is a good fit for that gym. They don't take everybody. It's a cultural thing. It's an ethic. You gotta get in line and be willing to work before they're willing to take you on. And clearly, Nery couldn't cut it. That is not good news. Right from the get-go, that is not good news. We'll see where he stands. On the other side of the aisle, every time Brandon Figueroa has stepped up, and people have wondered, well, kind of think he's reached his ceiling. This is too much to ask. He's met the challenge every single time, and his toughest test probably against Julio Ceja, he at least got a draw, split draw. But when he fought Oscar Escandón, knocked him out. Moises Flores knocked him out. Damian Vasquez in the bubble knocked him out. He's done everything asked of him. I think he's far superior talent to his brother, for sure. Could he stand with a little better defense? Yeah, he probably could. But there's a lot of these all offense fighters that do pretty well for themselves. It really depends on what version of Luis Nery shows up. I think even if he loses, this was the right call for Brandon Figueroa to test himself. He'll either win or he'll learn. And I think either way, it's going to be a real entertaining fight for all of us to get to watch.
Indeed, and I think that's going to cap it off. I think your last words just said it, a really good fight. I think it has the potential to be that, a really, really good fight, really entertaining, no matter how it goes or how it ends up. I'm anticipating an entertaining scrap here.
And
in the end,
we forget. It's at StubHub.
Yeah.
AKA the War Grounds. So, crazy things happen there.
And let's just hope it is not you don't see the number, the the instances of numerous fights there in the crowd that you saw for the recent.
Oh, you mean the unpaid fights out there in the crowd?
Right.
I don't think it's going to be quite as warm a day. And maybe, the edge is off. Crowds that was the first time Californians had gotten to attend a fight live since the pandemic started last March 2020. So I think they were a little over enthusiastic in their appetites. Hopefully they'll all be sort of calmed down. But no guarantees, it's kind of like a Raiders game every time you're there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're going to end things on that note. If you like what you heard this evening, please make sure to follow us on, follow us on YouTube. Make sure you hit that like button. Please make sure to subscribe. If you're checking us out on Spotify, please make sure to follow us there. Checking us out on iTunes or any podcast platform, please make sure you follow us there as well. I also want to thank everybody in the chat. I want to thank Emma. I want to thank Olaf. I want to thank Ivan. Also want to thank Orally Fools. I'm going to go around the panel here, begin the show with ladies first, going to end the show with ladies first. Gail from Communities Digital News and Falcon Group. For those who want to talk media, for those who want to talk boxing, let the folks know where they can find you. And for those who don't know about Falcon Valley Group, let them know what it is and talk about your next possible appearance on TMZ Live.
Well, we'll see when old TMZ has me back. I appear every couple of weeks as part of the viewer comments. So we'll see when Harvey and Charles have an assignment for me next. They're having a field day, by the way, with the Paul brothers and YouTube fights. And we purposely sort of avoided that on this show. I'm sure it'll come up sometime in the future. Let me also say, I cannot remember the last time we had so much outstanding quality listener participation. The comments were just choice tonight. A lot of different voices. So thank you to the listeners tonight. I salute you. Whether or not I agreed with you doesn't even matter to me. You were engaged and you were on it. So thank you. You can find me and my regular boxing column at Communities Digital News, which is COMM, Digi, D-I-G-I, News, comdiginews.com.
And for those who, not for those who, but give a plug to the Falcon Valley Group, what that is.
Well, I will just say that's my Skills That Pay the Bills. That's my public relations firm based here in San Diego. It is not boxing specific, although I have worked from time to time with some boxing clients.
Indeed. And I'll go to you, Daniel. Daniel from the Inscriber and as well as for Boxing News. For those who want to talk the NBA, for those who want to talk boxing, for those who want to talk the NBA, especially as it pertains to the Miami Heat, or for those who want to talk wrestling, um, let the folks know where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter, folks. Rockers99, RKWZ99. And definitely, like I said, catch me tomorrow. Me and Joe Francis we're gonna talk about obviously this fight. And like I said, obviously covering up next week. And I know we went preview because of what happened, but I was really looking forward to the Terry Harper Yumi Choi fight, but unfortunately Terry Harper injured her hand, had to pull out of the fight.
Yeah, now I'm not sure if that entire card has been scrapped, but the women's unification bout at 130 pounds between WBA women's junior lightweight champion Ho Min Choi and WBC 130-pound champ Terry Harper. Yeah, that's been scrapped due to Harper basically re-injuring her hand. I believe it was a right hand that was she re-injured. So unfortunately, that fight is not going to happen this weekend. For those who want to talk boxing, music, fitness, you know what it is with me on Twitter, Brother JR at Brother JR76. As I said, at the beginning of the show, if you want to find out all information regarding Pound for Pound Boxing Report, the website is the place to go to, p4pboxingreport.com. And repeat that, p4pboxingreport.com. If you want to email us, you can email us P4pboxing at P4pboxing report on the site. You can just go throughout the website, top bottom side portion of the page. You want to check us out on social media: Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, YouTube, IG, where you can donate. Let donation be the best nation. Got a donate, Cash Me a PayPal donation link. Also, want to check us out. Want to check out the podcast on all podcast platforms available: iTunes, Spotify, Anchor, anywhere else. In between, we're just about everywhere on the podcast realm. And last but certainly not least, the online link to my my online coaching page. I am an online coach with Beachbody. Check out Beachbody on Demand. Got all programs to suit any kind of all your interests. Check out the 2-week trial that runs throughout the year. You can get all of that through my coaching page on Pound for Pound Boxing Report site. On the next episode, we will do a recap of Nery and Figuroa, do a recap of Daniel Roman, and preview the big fight, unification bout at 140 pounds. WBC, WBO champion Jose Ramirez fighting IBF WBA champion Josh Taylor. I'm really looking forward to this fight. It's happening May 27th in Vegas. Also on the undercard, the return of Jose Cepeda. If you're looking for a fight for just pure violence, knock 'em, sock 'em robots, if you like knockdowns, if you like sensational finishes, just go to YouTube and check out Jose Cepeda's fight, his last fight against against Ivan Baranchyk last year. Arguably the fight of the year, if not the fight of the year, the knockout of the year. If you like gore, if you like phone booth warfare, please do yourself a favor and check out that fight. You will not be disappointed. You will not be disappointed. We talked a lot about that fight when it took place last year. Zepeda's making his return on the Ramirez Taylor undercard. Exciting fighter, can punch, can hit, and that's evidenced by the Baranchyk fight. Thriller minute fighter. So do yourself a treat. If you want to preview Jose Cepeda, just check out his fight against Baranchyk from last year. With that being said, for Gail from Communities Digital News, Falcon Valley Group, Daniel from For Boxing News and The Insider, I'm your host, Michael. This has been episode 325 of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report. We will see you guys next time. Everyone have a good evening. Once again, thanks to everybody for in the live chat. Thank you for your comments and your questions. Everyone have a good evening. Good night.
Good night, folks.